We've saved $3 million and we can't afford to retire. This is a real life scenario I had to walk through with a couple that came in off the YouTube channel and had to prove to them that they had enough money to retire. Welcome back to the On the Money YouTube channel powered by Allied Wealth. I'm your host, Ryan Wheelis. Thanks so much for stopping by the channel and tuning in. If you like the content we're putting out, please give us a like down below. Also hit the subscribe button and we'll keep you updated when we put out more content just like we're doing today. So yeah, could you imagine? You've saved $3 million and you come in the office about retirement with these looks in your faces? Well, folks, this is a real scenario that happened. I'm going to change the names and be private about information for sure, but this really did happen. And ultimately, I had to prove to these folks that retirement is not just about money. There's so many more things that are important to consider. And I really focus on the three most valuable things you have in your golden years. And a lot of people say, well, Ryan, that's money. And it's not. It is important. It's a tool, right? But I believe your health and your time are the two most important elements of retirement, with the third thing being money. So time, health, and money. And ultimately what we found out is these folks may have been sacrificing their time on the earth remaining and their health for money. And did they need to do that in the scenarios? That's what we're going to walk through today. So let's dive in here. So these folks were Jack and Diane. And Jack and Diane, little tribute to the John Cougar Mellencamp, by the way. They're wondering the same thing that so many people who come to us are wondering about. How much money can we spend and avoid running out of money? What if there's a market crash in the middle of my retirement, or the front end of my retirement, or at the tail end of my retirement, or several along the way? What about health care? What do we do about taxes? When's the best time for us to take Social Security? And that can be a pretty big puzzle to solve. Should we do Roth IRA conversions? What contingencies should we build into our plan? And then how do all these decisions we're making impact us 20, 30 years into the future, possibly even 40 years in the future, by the way? And then what will happen to my loved ones if I die? Will they be okay? And lastly is, how do all these decisions impact our legacy as well, right? So I'm going to not focus on all these elements today. I'm really going to focus on how we kind of got Jack and Diane to come to the revelation they did have enough money to retire, and if they kept going, they were going to sacrifice their time and their health to save more money, even though they had enough money to do what they wanted to do. All right, so the planning details of Jack and Diane. Jack's 68. He's still working. He's an engineer. And Diane is a domestic engineer. She's age 59. Jack has a great job. He really enjoys what he does, and his job allows him to work from home. And he's like, man, I'm kind of getting paid to be on vacation, right? He does have to do the occasional travel, but he doesn't mind that. Jack would like to retire at 70, but with Diane being younger, he worries about her being taken care of if he dies and having enough money to not worry about things. Diane's very risk averse. She likes to know the money's there and wants to spend it and feel secure. And so that's what Jack really wants to make sure happens if in the event he dies. And so neither Jack nor Diane feel like they can afford to retire. They're super concerned. They're kind of worrywarts, and they are worried about running out of money, in fact, if they do retire. So let's look at their numbers here. Went too far too fast here. There we go. Let's look at the numbers here. So basically, Jack's IRA has $1.385 million combined in all of his IRAs. He's got a few of them. He's got 70% of the money allocated to safe investments. He's got 30% allocated to risk. And some people might say, well, Ryan, that's too safe or that's too aggressive. Hey, whatever it is, that's, we got to look at the what your risk tolerance is to be either safe or aggressive, but we also have to look at your risk capacity. And Diane is very risk averse, which has made Tom risk averse, and so that's why they're allocated like this. Jack's got a 401k he's adding money to. Again, he's still working. He's got a $250,000 balance in there, and he's adding he's getting the company match and is maxing out his contribution in that 401k. Diane's got an IRA of $90,000 a year. Income annuity that they bought. They put $750,000. Actually, they put $500,000 into an income annuity about 10 years ago. It's grown to just over $750,000. But if they were to activate the income, this annuity would guarantee both of them for the rest of their life. They would, in fact, get $49,950 per year guaranteed for life. All right. Jack really liked this program for Diane because it provided Diane a future contractual guarantee of income, regardless of what happened with the stock market, the economy, interest rates, whatever it was. We knew that with this account that he had a future amount of income that his wife could depend on. All right, and that was super important because remember, she's younger than he is. They've got bank money. They've got about $400,000 in bank money. They've got an HSA, $30,000 a year. They're maxing that out to where they can. Although they have to stop doing that because he's going to go on Medicare once he does. He's not currently on Medicare now because he's still working and is on his current company insurance. Social Security, Jack at 70 will get $57,000 and some change per year. We're absolutely going to wait a plan for Jack to take Social Security at 70, because with the $57,000 for Social Security that would remains in the event Jack dies for Diane, and this income from this annuity up here, that's $107,000 a year in income that Diane would have regardless of what happens again with the stock market, the economy, interest rates, whatever it is. So she's got at least $107,000 a year guaranteed for life. And to that end, the Social Security income should grow for inflation, all right? And lastly, they've got a home, $900,000 home. They do have a $175,000 loan on the home. It's at the tail end of the mortgage. Most of the interest has been paid off. And so, one of the things Jack's struggling with is, hey, do I take the money out of the $400,000 a year and do I pay that home loan off? Or, I'm going to work 2 more years. Do I wait until I retire to pay the home loan off? And there's just some things we went in, some traps we ran through with him. In total, we've got $3.63 million in assets, guys. And if you think about it, that's a lot of money to retire on. That's 36 years of $100,000, right? So you took $100,000 out of that for 36 years, you'd be out of money. And that's assuming you got zero growth in the money and didn't do any investment. So even with a modest amount of growth, they should be in a relatively good position to retire. So what we did is we took all their assets, all these things right here, we put them together, okay? And then we measured the assets against what their goals were. Now, their goals were to spend as much money as possible and stay in the 12% bracket. Now, we're going to be able to do that for a while, but inflation alone is going to push us up into a higher tax bracket at some point in time in the future. And that's currently under current tax laws, by the way, as well. We know those sunset here very soon. The goal is also for Jack to take Social Security at 70. Again, we're doing that because Diane will get Jack's Social Security check when he passes away, and the Social Security check she's getting will stop coming in. They wanted to spend $20,000 a year per year on travel. They wanted to pay off the home, be able to spend money with confidence. And this is one of the things I had to get them to because they're so worried and so fearful of market crashes and running out of money. There were people that came from nothing and amounted the $3 million, the $3.6 million they had by hard working and saving and not being big spenders and doing stupid things with their money. So they're very, very conscientious of these things. They want to not be a burden to anyone, right? They don't want to become a burden. They don't have kids, so they don't want to become a burden to their loved ones and have to have somebody come take care of them, right? So these are their goals, all right? And we help them define these goals. And then what we do next is we measure their goals versus their money, meaning, what does it look like? What is the long-term probability of success of your money meeting your goals in a percentage? What is that? All right. So what we do is we put these numbers into a software program. We hit run 1,000 trials, and this runs 1,000 trials of various return circumstances. And what we're going to do is see what the long-term probability of success of Jack and Diane's money, the amount of money they saved, meeting their goals in retirement. So what we'll do is we'll fast forward here. And what we see is that based on the amount of money they have, and based on the Social Security income they have, based on their annuity income that they have a 99% chance of reaching their long-term goals. And that was generating enough income to stay in that 12% bracket growing for inflation. And they've got enough money to do that to the tune of 99% chance of success. And the reality is, it was when I see a plan run at 99%, I often say we're being too conservative. I'm pretty comfortable with that plan being around 85%. So what it tells us is they could actually spend a little bit more money if they wanted to, all right? But again, I've got to get them comfortable to retire. That was the whole goal here, okay? And so what we'll do now is kind of look at the fears that they had, all right? And so a lot of the retirement fears were just based on experiences in life. And so, they were worried about a stock market crash. So I had a plan around that. They were worried about long-term runaway inflation because, the topic of inflation is all over the place right now. They were worried about Social Security cuts, which is a potential reality these days, right? They were worried about lower than expected returns over the life of their plan. They were worried about dying too early or living too long. And lastly, they were worried about long-term care. What if a long-term care need arised? What would we do to handle that situation? Well, let's look at a stock market crash, all right? So I took their investments and ran it all the way up to a 50% potential market crash. And that, even though the market may crash by 50%, all right, they still have a 94% chance of meeting their long-term goals. And the reason why that is the majority of their income is made up from Social Security, which is inflation adjusted, and it's made up from the annuity income that Jack purchased for Diane years and years ago, because again, he wanted to make sure she was taken care of no matter what happens with the stock market, the economy, or interest rates, all right? And so to that end, they could survive a 50% market crash, all right? The next thing we got to look at is runaway inflation. So I believe we ran this plan at 3% inflation rate, but we looked at this and said, okay, what if inflation runs all the way up to 5.5% for the life of the plan? Well, if that happens, it drops their long-term probability of success down to 66%. Well, what do we do? Well, there's a couple of things we do. One, there's a lot of talk about the Federal Reserve pushing their target inflation rate up to 3% because they're having a hard time getting inflation under control, even with all the recent rate increases. You put $10 trillion into an economy, it gets very, very difficult to control inflation, right? Because you have more dollars chasing fewer goods and services along with the supply chain shrinking, and it creates a whirlwind of upward costs on goods and services and ultimately inflation. So I don't see that happening long term, but in the event that it did, it brings their probability of success down to 66%. Well, what can we do in this scenario? Well, what we could do in this scenario is look at spending less money. And if I move this needle this way or we spend less money, that long-term probability of success easily returns back into this green confidence zone right here. So there's things that we can do to mitigate that. All right. Now, the next thing we look at is going to be a 30% cut to Social Security benefits. And folks, you'll hear me talk about on the channel that I believe, I not necessarily believe it, I'm more concerned today than I have been in the past about a potential cut to your Social Security benefits. And the reason why I say that is to fix the problem, we've got to do a couple of things. We've got to decrease benefits, all right? And that means decreasing benefits on people currently receiving Social Security. We've got to push out the ages for new people going on Social Security to go on Social Security, and we have to increase taxes. Well, if I'm a politician trying to get elected, it's very difficult for me to garner votes if I'm running on decreasing current Social Security benefits, pushing out the age for people to get Social Security, all right, and lastly, increasing your taxes. And for that reason, nothing's being done about this on the Hill. And I think that we're in a situation to where nothing's going to be done about it, and I'm very concerned this could potentially happen. So I'm having this conversation a lot more with our clients and prospective clients than I have in the past, and I want to have a plan in place for in the event that that happens. And there's plenty of ways to plan around that if you plan around it now and don't wait till it actually happens, all right? I do think it's years down the road, but I think it's a lot less time than we may think, all right? So to that end, if they took a 30% cut to Social Security benefits, it still left them in a good position of long-term success, okay? The next thing we'll look at is going to be lower than expected returns. So the lower than expected returns, if they drop this all the way down by 3%, okay, in this scenario, meaning the returns were 3% less than projected, they still had a good number, a solid chance of long-term success, all right? Lastly, or next, it was living too long, all right? So I had Jack live to age 100, which he says he's not going to do. And I had Diane live to age 115, which she says, hey, maybe not, but let's plan for a long life. And by the way, there's science out there saying that if you're alive in 2030, you have a very strong chance of being 110 years of age. That's largely because of all these medical procedures and technologies around today that was not around in the past. All right, but even if they live a long time, they still have a very solid chance of long-term success. All right, the next thing we'll look at is a long-term care event. This is pretty scary because long-term care is expensive and the cost for long-term care coverage is not going to go down anytime soon, all right? So what I did is I put Jack at age 85 into a home for a period of 5 years, and I gave the cost of the home $150,000. Now, that's a lot more than the average cost of care today. The average cost of care today for homes is around $85,000 to $90,000. But I did that to grow the cost of care over time because I do believe the cost of long-term care will increase over time. So if Jack goes in at 85, is in for 5 years, spends $150 a year out of the investment portfolio, the retirement assets, they still have a 93% chance of long-term success. If in the healthcare situation for Diana, she goes in at 90. Now Jack's dead and gone, okay? She goes in at age 90. She lives for 5 years in the home and passes away in the home and spends $150,000 a year each year. So she's still in good shape as well. So in both scenarios, they're going to be okay. And what I did is I ran through these events that could really derail your retirement plan. And ultimately what I had to get them to is this. Guys, you have enough assets to retire, but your fears about doing it are causing you some concerns. You're concerned about money, all right? And what I'm concerned about for you is you have enough money, but to save more money, what you're doing by working longer is you're sacrificing your time. You're also sacrificing your health. All of these are our finite resources in our golden years. And we have to balance these resources in our golden years to get us where we want to go. The more time we spend working, the more time we don't have in retirement. The more time we don't have in retirement, the less healthy we are, because as we all know, folks, as we get older, we lose our health. Things begin to happen to us. Our bodies age and begin to wear out and that sort of thing. So understand these three finite elements in retirement is what I had to use to convince Jack and Diane, ultimately with the mathematics, that they do in fact have enough to retire, and what they're doing by trying to save more money because of their concerns and fears ultimately is going to cost them their time and their health. Well, thanks so much for stopping by and tuning into the channel today. I hope you get a lot of value out of this video. If you like the content we're putting out, give us a like. Also hit the subscribe button, and I'll alert you when I put out new videos in the future.